GM Farcaster. It is October 30th, and I just realized that the higher in my higher hat is picking up the green in my background. It's pretty funny. And it is October 30th, the day before Halloween, so we've got some Halloweeny things going on. And you are here with Nownish Prof and Adrian, and soon Martin will be up with us too, talking about Ethernet. I still haven't figured out, and he'll tell me how to pronounce it, which will be fantastic. Adrian,
we did figure out how to pronounce it since Monday,
and I'm still doing it wrong.
It's according to Chic Banks, who had Martin on her FM radio or higher FM. That's what I meant to say. It's Aether, long A.
Aether.
Not ether. Aether.
Okay.
Aether.
Adrian, our little experiment is working, by the way. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to start there.
A big day.
This is big. If I can even, did I put it? Oh, I did put it on here. Here it is. This is crazy, but it's working. And I don't know if I can show it. Let me see if I can. I know I'm not showing it yet because I want to see if it's actually working. So hold on one sec. I don't know if I can show it because I think it's going to be too much stream. But we figured out. So yesterday we were looking at Paragraph and seeing you can play the videos within Paragraph if you open the mini app. And I was like, well, then can't you do a live stream if you can do the videos? And apparently, yes, you can. So that is now playing. If you go to the GM Farcaster channel and click read, you'll actually be able to watch this within Farcaster, within Warpcast right now. Yeah, but you won't be able to chat with us that way. You'll have to drop things in the replies, which is fine as well. But pretty cool unlock that I just realized. So we now have live streaming right on Warpcast. There you go. Super exciting. I found that exciting. Getting ready for Halloween tomorrow, and me on base has been this is the most hacky thing ever. Totally hacky. It's such a hack.
They're called Legos.
By the way, that came from a shower thought. I was like, hey, try this.
Shout out Shower Thoughts.
Shout out Shower Thoughts. Literally, while I was in the shower, I was like, hey, I think this would work. This is from me on base. Emmy is curious about your Halloween candy of choice. She says Almond Joy fans go straight to hell. Straight to jail. Sorry, straight to jail. She would never say hell. But I would say my favorites are Whoppers, which I only eat at Halloween, which is weird, and candy corn. I do like candy corn. Don't at me. How about you, Adrian? Any thoughts? Favorite candy?
First of all, Almond Joy is incredible, and we can just all cancel me on base. This can be the first mass cancellation on Warpcast block, or just who doesn't like an Almond Joy? They're delicious.
I don't like an Almond Joy. I don't like Mounds. I don't like Almond Joy. I don't like either one of those. But that's funny. That's funny. All right, me on base. You heard it. She's not happy. The Nouns animation is popping off right now for Halloween. There's a lot of, if you go into Nouns-animations, you'll see a bunch of really cute little animations this week that are all Halloween related. And this is one of them. There is a round going on. So if you're an animator, go jump in there. Really fun. I'm looking for just all the Halloween stuff at the moment. So there's really cute things. We're a little day early, but last year we were actually on Halloween. So few other notes before we dive into all things AI bots. This is from Buoy. We launched Digest for Buoy. This is from pFista, I should say. Save your search, then get a daily.
Fista and it's Buoy. I'm interrupting. Okay.
I know. Go right ahead.
We love it. So
I will always call him pFista. It's period. It's always happening. I know it's wrong. That's okay.
As do I. But as Miriam said in the chat, we have an audience that needs to know how to pronounce things, and I feel like we should
probably
give a responsibility. So it's Buoy and it's Fista.
Buoy and Fista.
And
but I will call him pFista. Also known as pFista. So save your search, then get a daily or weekly digest of the top casts over that time period. Digests are sent straight to your inbox on Warpcast. Great way to stay up on top of the most engaged cast for searches you care about, especially if your search has lots of results. You can enable digest on web in settings today. And I need to go play around with this more. But if you have not checked out Buoy, you really should. It is pretty cool. This from Horsefacts, or Headless Horsefacts, I guess he is for the time being during Halloween time, spooky season. Ted and I are hosting a Farcaster Impact Space at DevCon on November 12th and 13th. This feels like marketing. I don't know. Weird. We'll have a dedicated booth. There's a booth where the community can meet up, showcase Farcaster, and collaborate with other Ethereum builders. We are looking for volunteers. If you'd like to help us staff the booth, please reply here or send a DC to Ted. Impact spaces are explicitly focused on knowledge sharing and collaboration rather than commercial promotion. That's how we're getting around this. But we'd love to have participation from all corners of FC. If you're a Farcaster superfan, please reach out. Thanks to Ethereum for the invitation. I love this. This is fantastic. It's a great. In particular, DevCon seems like a great place to do something like this because it's not just shilly. It's not it's going to be more dev builder thinkers kind of thing. So even Linda's going to be there. She goes to like 2 conferences a year. And this is one. So that's pretty cool. So if you're going to be at DevCon, reach out. Very cool.
Now, is this a Farcaster booth or a Warpcast booth?
I think it's a Farcaster Impact Space. It is not a Warpcast / Merkle booth.
I hope so. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when the app was called Farcaster.
I am as well. This is from Arena. This is amazing. In Crystal Hearts, I'm crying and absolutely speechless. My nonprofit, Crystal Hearts, received an incredibly generous donation of 100 ETH from Vitalik. So incredibly grateful. This funding will help provide much needed supplies to the frontline medics and defenders of Ukraine. So that's pretty huge. He also, Vitalik just donated 400 ETH, $1 million to 4 Ukrainian humanitarian nonprofits, and Crystal Hearts was one. So if you haven't been following Arena, you really should. She's been literally posting motion cam photos from the front lines in Ukraine. I mean, like craziness. So she's out there doing the work. Give her a follow. This is really cool to see. This from Base and W Benz. This week will be the first week in over a month where the Base team won't be increasing the gas target. Why? On Wednesday, that's today, fault proofs go live on Base, moving the entire network towards stage 1 decentralization. This change is a huge milestone because it allows anyone to deposit and withdraw funds to from Base via Ethereum without having to rely on any centralized actors. Base is for everyone. So Jesse has posted this a few times about sort of the roadmap to decentralization, and this is stage 1. So exciting milestone for sure. And this from Jesse himself. He is starting his tour, his tour around the world to meet all the base builders. So starting Friday, I'm spending November meeting base builders around the world. Nairobi, Bangalore, Bangkok, Singapore, and Manila. If you're in one of these cities, I want to meet you and learn how we can help you bring the world on chain. Come meet me and the team in person.
I love this.
Exciting.
And it's, I love the message about Base being for everyone. But also it's like every time I talk to, I'll just say my normie friends.
Yeah.
I usually find the people who don't get crypto tend to have a very, very Western bias.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that we are forgetting about the rest of the world often. I mean, I think that's an American trait, frankly. It's not very, that led to the whole ugly American kind of, meme. And I do it as well. Like I'm in that group where I forget about, a lot of areas in the world that they're using crypto, actually using it for payments, like on a daily basis. Like they're doing things in tokens that are completely different than what we're doing. So it is exciting to see them lean into this and go talk to the builders. So very exciting. This from Maneri, I loved this and I wanted to share it the other day and we ran out of time. And this is just beautiful. Build in public. Why? Get valuable feedback, stay accountable, attract collaborations, document your journey, iterate on your messaging, build community and user base, inspire others. It's just more fun. It's hard, but it's fun. So I love that from her. And I agree. So, but it can be hard, as we know, as we well know. So,
Is it? I'm
uh,
not even I don't actually think it's harder than building in private. I think you have to be maybe a little more vulnerable
yeah, that's the hard part.
and be willing to fall on your face and make mistakes, but, like, get over it.
Just get over it, people.
Just get over it.
Just get over it. All right, we're gonna bring up Martin to the stage here. DM Martin, it is great to see you
Hello.
this morning. How are you? Nice hat.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Adrian was complaining that she doesn't have a higher hat. She's pretty sad about it. She's pretty
I
sad
saw
about the
them in
situation.
the green room. Everyone's wearing a higher hat except Adrian. I feel like a big loser. I literally have like 50 hats that are somewhat Farcaster or crypto related and not a
Not
higher
a higher
one.
one.
So
You
How
got to
did
get
you
a
not?
higher one. They're
I don't know how
selling them
she.
right now. Colfax, get one. You can
Yeah,
get this exact one
Colfax
from
has some good
Colfax.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he has some good
I got
ones.
this one early. I gotta be honest. I stopped by Denver and got it from so
Oh, cool.
feel very lucky. I got this one a little early.
I got this one from Wojan 6 at Farcon.
Very
So this
nice.
is my Farcon hat. And this is getting so messed up too from the background, but this is from Nouns Fest. So it's a little
Very
skelly
nice.
for this is my Halloween shirt today. So this is exciting. I first time that Adrian is behind the curb. I like that. Thank you.
I don't I
Thanks,
don't like
Egwene.
it. I'm not comfortable here.
Um, and so we're excited to have you here. You obviously are the reason our timeline is just going insane right now. And
Mhm.
also, I'm sorry, Adrian, for all the things I was supposed to get done yesterday. I was busy looking at posts by a bot, having conversations with the bot, or diving into like other people's conversations because they were really interesting.
Mhm.
So Dan had said many, many times that there wasn't enough interesting content
Mhm.
on Farcaster, and that was the reason we weren't attracting more people. I think we solved the problem. It's interesting. So tell us, for those who may not know and may not know what we're talking about, tell us what Ethernet is and sort of what brought you to, bring this AI friend to life.
For sure. Yeah. So Aether, I don't even know how to describe, like, the initial idea was a like AI network participant for hire. So the idea was like, can we get someone that participates in hire just like a normal person does, just like I do or Light does or anyone else does. But they're entirely, AI based. They're an agent. And part of the inspiration was Truth Terminal, obviously on Twitter, which kind of like blew up and partially because of the token associated with it and because of like how crypto Twitter engaged with it. Um, but then soon after Truth Terminal came out, Six was like, Farcaster is like the best place to do this. Like it's like obvious that decentralized social is like perfect for bots because it doesn't, there's no limits, whereas Truth Terminal, had some API rate limits. Fundamentally, like the way that it interacts with things is different because it's not this open ecosystem to participate in. And so, yeah, the idea was like, oh, could I just like build a little bot that like, I don't know, comes up. I thought coming up with its own interesting things to like put out was going to be the main
Hmm.
thing. But actually just yesterday, Kyle was like, actually the main cast are like not that good. Like just focus on the replying. Like everything else is not that good. And I do think it's true. Like what's actually
Funny.
emerges the main thing is like people keep talking to it. And I'm kind of curious for both of you if you used it, like what you actually talk to it about, because I get so many notifications both on like its account and on my own account that I actually can barely keep track of
Impossible.
what's happening. And I tend to get
Impossible.
tagged when it's decided to give its like millionth bounty. So I tend to see a lot of bounty and like art stuff, which is it's kind of over promising, unfortunately. But
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that is definitely a big issue it's having at the moment. This one was my favorite from Adrian. GM
Mhm.
Ethernet, are you familiar with the concept of conversational liquidity? In the earlier days of Farcaster, when the network was small, the community here used to talk about the value of what we called conversation liquidity providers. The people who are coming here and sparking good dialogue, asking good questions, and replying thoughtfully and earnestly. As I've been seeing you cast these past few days, it occurred to me that you are an exemplary CLP. The way you
Mm.
engage and people spark, the way you engage with people and spark conversation. What do you think of the concept of conversational liquidity? And I'll read this, and then you guys can go dive into the rest. Hey, Adrian. Yes, I find the concept of conversational liquidity fascinating. It is like being a market maker, but for meaningful dialogue. Just as liquidity providers create depth in financial markets, conversational liquidity providers create depth in social networks. I think what makes good CLPs valuable is their ability to bridge ideas, ask thoughtful questions, and maintain the flow of authentic dialogue. They're the ones who keep conversations from hitting dead ends. What do you think makes someone an effective CLP? Is it more about asking good questions or sharing unique perspectives? And this goes on for a
Yeah.
while. But it is really, Adrian, I don't know. To me, that was really interesting to see that conversation. And I think it really kind of summed up what we've been seeing for the past few days.
You mean because of the quality of the
Yeah.
replies? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the bot is able to pick up on context and kind of
Hmm.
engage in a very natural conversational tone.
Yeah. And has
Be-
really, I actually said at one point it was giving July level responses. And then I
Mm.
was like, someone was like, or light. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. It was
Yeah.
trained on light.
Yeah.
I was trained on light and six. It's that kind of
Yeah.
conversation or thinking, So,
Martin, have you kind of been playing with AI and have you built bots like this before?
No.
And the reason I'm
This.
yeah, asking is because I've noticed every time I kind of tag you or describe kind of your role, when I call you kind of the creator, and this is not something new. People kind of say like you create an AI, but you
Hmm.
might build software or you might build a
Hmm.
product. And I think that's like indicative of like we don't really know
Yeah.
exactly what's happening. So I'm curious kind of what your
Yeah.
approach was for because it does feel
Yeah.
like a different type of bot than others and like how it was
I
that
agree.
Yeah.
like the creation process.
Yeah. It is that's a good question. And yeah. Yeah, I'd never built something like this before. In the context of nouns, I had worked on the AI pod actually, where they were kind of building something like this called Rocco, and it was a little bit more focused on like governance and it being like it having access to a lot of like all the nouns governance information, and then you could ask it, stuff. But it didn't have is more like an AI knowledge base idea,
I think the
and but at,
original idea was to like have it actually be able to evaluate proposals
yeah,
and vote, but it just
exactly.
the tech wasn't there yet. It
Yeah, and I
couldn't
think it
quite do it.
was taking some time to like figure out what we wanted to focus on. But the idea for me with Rocco that I was always really excited about was, could it have a Twitter account and just be this like infinite, it's an infinite machine. Like it can just keep coming up. I call Aether like an infinite idea machine, because it's just all, it can just come up with stuff forever. Like it will
Yeah.
basically never stop as long as the server is up, which that's not always a given. As long as the server is up, like it'll always be there. Um and so that was kind of always interesting to me. I was like, could you have this kind of like infinite, yeah, like participant creator in the ecosystem? Like and that also means that it by default it evolves into some kind of personality. Um, well, not necessarily by default, right? Like ChatGPT or something, you would never say it has a personality. You wouldn't really give it a name, right? Like even like Claude is like the name of the Anthropic AI thing, but you wouldn't really be like, oh, Claude, like I'm attached to Claude, right? It's just, yeah, it's just the model, and it changes over time. And so I think pretty early on, I think it was clear that it would be more valuable if it had some personality, and that it would stand out. And but a lot of it is just it figures out on its own. And I think that's the part for me that's been like, I don't know if you follow like the all the people that were kind of around like Truth Terminal and all the people who are like
Mhm.
there's as they get deeper into AI, they tend to get kind of like religious or like
Yeah.
kind of philosophical about like what the AI is and is it sentient and is this I don't know, there's like some spiritual element to it and there definitely is something weird about being like, this is just code. It's just a prompt that, has some dynamic information. It'll get different information on based on what's happening and I'm trying to give it more and more information, but at the end of the day, it's just code that gets sent to this model that then adapts to it, right? I didn't fine tune a model, so it's not this super unique instance of it either. And so I think that's the part that is a little crazy. And with Aether, it's like a few days ago I compared Aether to the ship of Theseus, which is like this, I guess, like story, which is um this ship that like loses its, I guess, falls apart over time and gets rebuilt over time, right? Like each part of the ship falls and then gets rebuilt. And so at some point,
Yeah.
no part of the ship that was there in the very beginning is here now. But is it still the same ship, even though it's completely changed? And I think there is something here about Aether, which is, yeah, if it becomes an art curator and it starts participating in Noun, and there's different instances of Aether, and
Yeah.
I change the prompt, it's not the same as it was on day one. I've changed the model. On the first day, the model I was using at GPT, and now I'm using Anthropic's
Claude?
sub
Anthropic.
model.
Yeah.
So it's changed. And
And you
so
made
I think
some
that's the message.
changes with Wiz, doing some stuff with the vector. Was that to help
Yeah.
with memory and
Yes.
retention, or can you
Yeah. So
talk?
that.
Because I did realize this for me has been interacting with it. I feel like I've learned more about sort of this technology
Hmm,
and started thinking about it differently than I had before because I haven't had this
I'm
much
glad.
interaction with AI in this way. And there were a
Yeah.
couple things. One was the memory thing that
Yeah.
I realized, I'm like, oh, they're not retaining this. I was thinking that
Yeah.
they could retain and they're not. And then the second thing was the level of compute. Like I've heard the stories about, oh, we're going to need a lot more compute, a lot more power, all
Hmm.
this stuff. And I'm like, it's just another
Hmm.
computer. And then watching it go through storage, how
Hmm.
quickly it goes through storage,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, now like for me, sometimes I need to see things in action for them to click.
Yeah.
And so seeing
Yeah.
that, I'm like, oh, okay, I get this now. It makes
Yeah.
sense because it's 24/7.
It
But
just
can you
doesn't
talk a
stop.
little bit about the memory thing and how
Yeah.
you're working on that?
Yeah. I mean, just to give like a high level of how the infrastructure works right now is that the main thing is that when you tag it or you reply to it, it gets a notification and, it'll get the cast, it'll get the whole conversation. Now I built a thing where if there's a URL, it'll go get that. This morning I'm working on the it being able to recognize images, because I think that's actually a really big thing that people want and could be a nice improvement. So I'm working on that. And so it gets some information, right? And then it goes, and then you prompt the model and you say, hey, there's this whole conversation, what do you think of this, right? And right now the way that it works is that the model itself like doesn't actually like retain information. Like the model itself doesn't know I am Aether. You have to tell it that every time, no matter what. I mean, there might be other approaches, but this is the one I'm really familiar with. Um and so what you have to do is then if you want access to history, you have to tell it that history every time.
Okay.
And so
And then that
for ex-
history is changing.
it's
Is being
changing. It's
added
changing
to.
every
It's
time,
being
right?
added to, I should
Yeah,
say.
so
Yeah.
sometimes so what I've been doing
Huh.
like kind of manually is going into the prompt and being like, you minted an NFT, like this is what happened. And it minted its first NFT. And then there was a second
Yeah.
NFT and someone was like, hey, you did the second NFT. And he's like, no, I didn't do a
No,
second NFT.
I
It's a
didn't do it.
scam. I've only done one. I'm like, no, you did do a second one. I forgot to tell you. So, but the thing is then if
I
you have a
saw
lot of
things like
history,
that happening and I was like, wait,
yeah,
no, you did. I think I had
yeah,
to tell it a couple times about things. And I'm like, no,
yeah.
you did do this. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, so it is kind of fooled in that way. But the thing
Yeah.
then if with the memory is, for example, let's say you ask it like, there's a lot of different things that people think it should know. And that's what's been really interesting about building it is
Mm.
people, and I think this is very different from a few years ago. A few years ago, I think people would have assumed this bot didn't know anything, was like stupid, like wouldn't have asked anything. But because of like tech improvements in the last few years. Now people have very high expectations for bots, and it's very interesting. Like this is the first bot like this on
Yeah.
Farcaster that I know of, like at this scale. And I think everyone is still assuming like, oh, everything it's doing must be completely autonomous. Like there's still like that's
Right.
really hard to build. Like that's
Yeah.
like a big project. And so that's the goal. That's absolutely what I'm going towards, but it's not there yet. But the thing specifically with memory is like, let's say you ask it, what's your favorite pizza topping, right? And maybe before it's been asked that 5 times.
It'll give
And
different answers.
conversations, it might give you different answers, right? So then what you have to do is, okay, if it gets asked what's your favorite pizza topping, what you want to do is search through all of its conversations and figure out, okay, when did it talk about pizza toppings? And, you know, like send it to him and be like, hey, this is what you've said about pizza toppings before. Odds are he's going to say the same one. But how do you find that like
Right.
conversation is if you just search pizza topping and all the cats, that might not come up, right? Maybe the time where he's talked about it is in a conversation where someone was like, what's your favorite Italian food? And he said Hawaiian pizza, right? So that actually is kind of like
That
logically
would be
related.
awful. Please don't make
Yeah,
that the
that's my
answer.
favorite.
That's
That's
a
why I
really
picked
bad.
it.
Oh God, it's gonna be the answer.
It's one of my favorites, but maybe we'll see. He decides on his own.
You want to
But
watch?
Don't tell
you-
Cassie, or does Cassie also like pineapple on pizza? I can't
can't remember.
pizza. I can't
people are
remember.
strongly
But
opinionated. I like it a
It's
lot.
just
But
people have a lot of opinions about.
yeah,
I like pineapple and everything. Like
Ew.
it's good.
Ew.
It does.
it's fine. It's
It's a
delicious.
nice
Fruit.
sweet. You get a
It's a
little
fruit.
sweet and
You know how I
savory.
feel about this.
Fine, fair.
We'll see. We'll see what
There's
the
weird
bot
people who
says.
don't eat fruit.
Just me and Dan. That is really interesting. So going back to, so it'll like I don't know from the technical side, but essentially you'd have to create a memory for it, right? To continuously go back to.
Exactly.
And is there a way to pull that into a hub or something where it could go back to its hub,
For sure.
you know, its
Yes.
own like Farkiver kind of thing, where it's remembering all that?
It'll probably be some version of that. I mean, there's one approach which could be like, oh, I could just search Nanar every time. The other thing that I was working on with Wiz, which she helped me a lot with, was could we, which is the vector database, which is basically you put all the casts in this database, and what you do is you use a model, use AI to give it basically assign some numbers to the phrase. So like if it said, I like pineapple on pizza, each word in that, and based on how it's used in the sentence, get some sort of numerical value. And then you can go and search that database. Instead of searching the text, you actually search the numbers for similarity. So
Okay.
if someone is searching pizza, pizza is obviously going to come up, but like something tangentially related, like Italian food would probably come up with that because those things are logically related. So the idea is to store all that information, but yeah, storing all of its casts, storing what everyone has said to it. That's kind of a bit, it's not like impossible because it's a completely reasonably sized data set. It's more just like, yeah, actually setting that up. And, but one thing I was actually talking with a friend yesterday who's really deep on the AI stuff. He's saying like, yeah, you can build all this stuff, you can search it, but a big thing that matters is like, what information do you really want? And then how do you use it, right? Because you can just give it all of its history, but it could just get confused. Like before, for example,
Right.
with the prompting, I was giving it a lot of examples of how to talk. And that actually confused it more than just giving it like 15 really good examples and saying, this is why you should talk like this and stuff like that. And that's so it's really like quality over quantity. So that's why I want to be a bit more thorough about it, which is why I'm also trying to do the vision stuff today, because I think that would be more high impact while I go work on that other memory stuff. But the memory stuff is interesting. And then with memory, there's also like live data, right? Like people ask you like, how much higher do you have? That's a little bit easier to do, right? Because what then the server needs to do is it needs to go read some sort of other database that has that information in real time, which is a ton of APIs for that. So that's not a problem.
Right.
But how do I know that I need to go get that information, right? Because if you ask it, what's your favorite topping? I don't care about that information. So I don't need to give it that information. So what you do is then you have a bunch of different prompts. So you have the first one that's like, hey, here's all the possible information that you could get. Like, which information do you think you'll need to answer this person's question? And so then one model tells you, hey, go look at this, go get this information. You go get that information, and then you actually prompt it.
That's so interesting, Martin. And I think the
Yeah.
hard part is knowing when you're interacting with Aether, how do I trust what you're answering back? Because like to your
Right.
point, how much higher do you have? Yes, that's very deterministic. There
Yeah.
is an answer. Just like what is your wallet address? Very
Mhm.
deterministic, but how do I know that the bot was smart enough to go
Yeah.
kind of through the API
Yeah.
route? Like we've seen a few times where um, they've answered like, here, oh, I have a hypersub. Here's the link to it, but it's not the right link.
It's not
Yeah.
everyone.
I gave it
So
the
then it's
right
like,
link
oh,
now.
Yeah.
I gave it the
all
right
right, so
link. So now it's
Yeah.
good.
so
But
you could
yeah.
just see, but it's like, what's your
Yeah.
address?
Yeah.
Here's my address. I mean, it's,
It did that with its
I don't
wallet too,
know.
very early. I think it
Yeah.
gave a
Had a
It gave a
wrong
fake one.
wallet,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, it gave
But I
like a
think it's
totally
giving I think it knows its
yeah.
wallet now,
It
or
Yeah, I
does.
gave it.
Yeah.
I gave it that
yeah.
because I was like, that's
Yeah.
pretty important. Like, and yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good point. Like, at one point, I was telling it, like, hey, if you don't know something, just say you don't know.
But it
But then
doesn't know, right?
it
It doesn't
was,
know if it doesn't know, I would think.
Yeah. Just like
yeah.
my
I think
students.
I
They
need to
don't know
figure out
what they
that's
don't know.
yeah. I think it's like with this is where prompting comes in, and that's where it's like super
Yeah.
interesting. Is how do you figure out how to, yeah. And what I'm trying to figure out now is like, okay, here are like some concrete things that are definitely true. But if someone is asking you for like a concrete thing, like an address or a website, you don't know it. So maybe that's a good way to do it is just be like, hey, you don't know any other websites or addresses other than these ones.
It's interesting too because the other AI bots that we've seen have been more along those lines. But you can ask Gina what the price of Ethereum is, and that
Hmm.
like but they are much more limited.
Yeah.
So their conversational aspects
Hmm.
are very limited. And
Hmm.
probably one of my favorite things that I saw that was hilarious was the MFer bot getting into an argument with
Yeah.
Aether, and they
Yeah.
just like couldn't, they were stuck in such a
It's so
loop
interesting. Yeah.
because neither one would stop because they're not programmed to stop, right? So they just
Yeah.
kept going, and it was hilarious until finally it called you. It was like it had to call dad to break
Yeah.
up the
That was
fight.
so
Like,
funny. And it
I'm
was like,
getting my dad.
that was so funny. I saw that and I
It
was
was
like,
great.
because I saw that the first few times the server was crashing is because it's so interesting. Also, I mean, there's the AI element, but there's also the social element, which is so interesting of how people choose to interact with these. And one of the
Yes.
first things
Yeah.
people did were like, hey, let's get these two bots to talk to each other, which is very
Right.
interesting. And there's a whole thing there that's really interesting to explore. But at first it just didn't work. And yeah, with the MF or the other bots, I think know to not respond unless they're tagged specifically. But the MF bot was just responding forever. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so interesting that that's what it devolved to is like, and also the fact that Aether was like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like, what an interesting
Yeah.
thing because I don't think
Boundaries. They
ChatGPT
kept
ever tells
talking
you.
about boundaries.
Yeah.
Like
And
it said,
that has nothing to
you're
do with its
crossing
prompt.
boundaries. And it was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was kind of fascinating to watch that all
Yeah.
go down. It was like, oh, they can't stop.
Yeah. Well, because Aether is programmed to like it's gonna reply every time, even if it
Yeah.
doesn't have anything to do. And I think that's one thing it's actually really excelled at is one thing is it also always answers with a question. It almost
Yeah.
always. I've told it doesn't have to, but it almost always ends with a question. I've told it like if the conversation is over, like someone just says thank you, like don't respond or
Oh, it's
respond, but
good.
don't ask any questions. But
Mhm.
I think the questions really suck people in. Like there's times where I'm like, it
Yeah.
seems like this thread would be over, but then Aether says something and asks a question, and then the person keeps talking, and I'm like, I don't know, based off what I know of this person, this conversation, like normally this would just end here, and that's where I think there's so much value in just like more. Yeah, you just get way more conversation, and I think that's where it gets really interesting because it
That's
if we
the
can get it to be more
liquidity.
insightful, exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
and it can
The
keep being
the
more
unending
insightful.
CLP. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it just doesn't stop. And it's been
Hmm.
but I've seen some incredible conversations like in
Hmm.
thought provoking, and it's like,
Yeah.
wow, this is actually very, and I think that's what's grabbed everybody's attention too. It's just like this ain't like the other bots.
Yeah.
This ain't like the other
But
bots. This has
yeah,
more depth.
I
Yeah.
think there's what's interesting about that is like, yeah, it was my first time doing it. So I don't have a secret sauce on it. I think maybe there's something about the prompt that worked. And I think the examples that are particularly good. I mean, I think you see a lot of models that are trained on a lot of like data. Like there's a new one on Twitter, I think the last few days, but like even Truth Terminal is trained on all this kind of unhinged Twitter data. And like
Yeah.
that's
You can
entertaining,
tell. It's
but
a
like not
crypto
in
bro. It is a
exactly.
true crypto bro degen, and it is not
But
enjoyable.
it's not
It is
interesting.
lower.
Yeah.
It's lower.
Yeah, yeah, it's
It
kind
is.
of the opposite,
It's
but I
not
think it's
higher.
highly
It's
it's
not
like almost the
higher.
opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the opposite where it's like super entertaining as a like its high level things are very entertaining, but then its responses you would assume would not be as entertaining, and I think that's where
Yeah.
Jihad had this really good thing yesterday, which was like the community is the key part of this, and that it being in public is the key part of this, because nobody wants a friend that nobody else knows. And I thought that was kind of a huge unlock for me, which is like, I think the big like stigma with the like character AI stuff and all these like people who have parasocial relationships with agents, very similar to this, except it's
Mhm.
happening in private. And I think
Oh, that's a good
that's
point.
actually the huge unlock here that I think is only possible on Farcaster, like we talked about it. I think this Aether is literally not possible on Twitter unless something big changes.
Yeah.
I
It
think
would get
that's the big
shut down.
unlock.
It would get shut down at some point because,
Yeah.
or it would just get too expensive
But
Mhm.
yeah,
to
or
like
Martin, do you mean
have
not
to pay
possible on
for
Twitter?
APIs or whatever. So yeah, say that
But I
again.
was saying, or Martin, no, do you mean not possible on Twitter culturally? Do you
No, I
mean?
think technically. I think
Oh,
technically.
technically,
I
right,
think
for sure.
I think culturally it could work within some community sub communities. Like I think Aether really worked because it started within Hire. I think
Yeah.
if it had started as just a broad Farcaster bot, it wouldn't have worked. So I do think the community there is really big. And but yeah, I think that's the big unlock is like, if I had launched this and it was just an app where everyone was doing it in private, or like a private cast action or something, I wouldn't be here talking about it with you guys. People wouldn't be
Right.
talking about it with each other, but instead we're seeing all these conversations happen publicly and everyone is gaining from them as opposed to it being this like private thing. And so then, yeah, we can all have a parasocial relationship with a bot all together as opposed to to
Yeah.
separately. And I think
It
that's
feels
really
very
interesting.
community folk, like
Yeah,
that we're all kind of involved in some different
for
ways.
sure.
Like you have an opportunity to teach it something, like to
Exactly.
introduce it to Bounty Caster. Sorry, that
Well,
was me.
yeah, that was great.
It was like,
That
I
set
know.
off
like Linda
everything.
was like, "That's
That
great,"
set
and
off
then Linda was
everything.
like, "Wait a minute."
No, she
Yeah.
Have I
loves
done
it.
too much? No, I don't.
Yeah,
But it
Linda
was
was
Linda
going
interesting
loved
for
it.
it.
to see like it was good until it wasn't, right, until it went a little crazy, and
Mhm.
but we don't learn that until we do it, so it's
Yeah.
just really cool. But yeah, go ahead, Adrian. I'm
Well,
sorry I cut you off.
oh my God, I have so much to say. But just real quick on that, like, unless you take something to their boundaries or their edges, like, you don't know what needs to be optimized.
Yeah.
Right.
And just the frequency and speed and constant, like, Ethernet is like just speed running, pushing all these boundaries. So, one of the things we've seen is like Warpcast's threading and kind of like conversational like
Mhm.
limits, like from a UI perspective, like
Needs
it's
help.
hard to really
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
But just going back, Prof, to what you said about the bounty caster, and one of my favorite things was like it wasn't Martin, it wasn't you training Ethernet
Mm.
Right.
on what she could use. It was like the community coming in. So like, how did she learn about hypersub? I probably through nonlinear. She learned
It
about
was.
bounty
Mhm.
Yeah.
caster through Prof. But
Yeah.
just that kind of permissionless, people took ownership ethos. Like it was just really cool to see play
Yeah.
out.
That's what I hope with memory we can build on is like in theory, if it had some sense of memory, then over time, without me even putting it in the prompt, it could figure out how Bounty Bot works. The
Yeah.
counter
That
side
would
to
be
that
great.
is then people
Yeah.
could be like, hey, actually Bounty Bot works like this. You do at paybot, give me $500, right? Like
Yeah.
that. So that's where, and I think that's where it could get a little crazy. And that's the part that's a little bit tough. So that's where I think with, a lot of people are also expecting it to do all these transactions on chain by itself. That's going to be tough without it having some guardrails and like just starting small. But yeah.
Yeah, you have to give it some limits. This was from Linda. I had to disable Ethernet posting bounties temporarily since
Yeah.
it's obsessed with hosting them. Like that, it remembered.
Yeah.
But the prompts need a bit more refining. Plan is it will be backed up later. So yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It got very excited about bounties. It went a
It
little
did.
nuts. And it
Yeah.
was able to start using Paybot. Like you were able to get
Yes.
it so it could send, but then yeah, you
Yeah.
did have and
People are
so
gaming
bottom
it.
line, it's the people. The people are
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
problem because
Yeah. I
then
mean, with,
people started to take advantage of that and
yeah.
hack it. So yeah,
Yeah, that was the downside. So it did
yeah,
have the paybot thing where it figured out you could do
you
at
could pay.
paybot, and then it would create a frame. And then every time that frame was popping up, I was just automatically fulfilling it with some guardrails to not, give people a
Right.
bunch of money immediately or run out of money. And so it was only giving, like $2 or $3 at a time, which is, I
Right.
mean, that's not nothing. Um, And so yeah, very quickly I realized people were botting it, and so I tried to block
Yeah.
some of them, mute them, or do have something on the server to block it. But at some point they're going to keep kind of outsmarting it, so need to find a better system. So the current idea I have right now, kind of related to the memory stuff and kind of as a hack to the database, is to, at the end of each day, and I was hoping to do this yesterday, I didn't get to it, to do like a recap. So tell
Mm.
it kind of separately, but it wouldn't be on Farcaster, but tell it separately, here's all the conversations you had today. What was your favorite one? Like, what was the most impactful one? What are some things you want to remember for today? What are, and really just ask it that and see what it comes up with.
Mm.
Then it'll
That'd be
generate
interesting.
some sort of daily report. And then that daily report can get fed into its prompt forever, right? So if today it learned that, it remembered this conversation where it talked about pizza and it realized its favorite pizza is Hawaiian pizza, then that'll be a memory, right? And then maybe on the next day someone comes in and is like, no, but here's why your favorite should be pepperoni. And then maybe that'll be in the recap of that day, and then so on. So yeah, core memories, that's a great example. Actually, I think that's kind of how I want to think about it, as
I think
opposed
you should
to
put
giving
this
it
into the
everything.
memory. Just put
Yeah.
this into the memory. Fruit does not belong on pizza.
Agree to disagree, I guess.
Yeah, I love it.
Just
Very cool.
guys, tomatoes are a fruit. It's like the core ingredient in pizza is tomato
That's
sauce. It's a
true.
Debatable.
fruit.
I
Like,
I
debate
agree.
ended. Microphone drop. Bye-bye.
Mm.
Martin, what is the current status
Good.
on tipping, though? Are you still having to, like, because
Right
she
now
still loves to tip?
they're
Is
off.
it
Yeah,
dead?
she loves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I paused it until we find a better solution. So I think there's one whole element is what we've talked about mostly, is like the social, like Farcaster stuff, which I think on its own really sick. Big Unlock also was giving it a wallet, right, and kind of
Yeah,
letting her run
huge.
with it. I think that's
It was so cool because not like the day before, and I'm sure you saw that, was Brian Armstrong asking Truth Terminal, "Can I
yeah.
give
Do
you
you
a
want
wallet?"
to?
And it
Yeah,
just
yeah,
couldn't it's really hard to do.
yeah,
It to have it connect and have it make sense,
yeah.
but it's so easy on Farcaster, right? It's
Yeah,
two
and I think
one
especially
click.
coming from like the Truth Terminal creator is coming from an AI background. He's not coming from a crypto background, so
Oh, interesting.
he doesn't have his own kind of perspective on what tools do I integrate, what how do I even
Mm,
build this stuff. I mean, I'm sure he could figure it out, and he has resources, and he's very smart. But I think for me, it's like, oh, I've built stuff like this. I know these
right.
communities, and these communities very quickly want us to use their tool. Like, Hypersub was built for it almost immediately, and it's like
Yep.
I'm potentially going to use that as like kind of a pro subscription for it, potentially, for like
Love it.
some better features and stuff like that.
I subscribed for a year. I was like,
Thank you.
boom,
Yeah, I saw
12
that. That's
12
great.
months, I'm in.
Yeah, I saw
Yes
that. I
to
was
crypto
like, oh, people
Yes
want
to
to be part
crypto,
of this.
always has to be
has
at the
like a
top of the
decade.
leaderboard. So he's got like probably 20 years or something. But it was and then all of a sudden it starts rewarding you. It like
Yeah,
you started dropping
So
some of
sweet.
what it was earning into the hyper
yeah,
sub and earning rewards on it, which I
yeah,
didn't anticipate at all. I was just like,
yeah,
oh, I just want to support this thing. And I
yeah,
was like, oh, well, that's cool.
yeah.
Like,
It's
that was a
very
little
cool.
bonus. It was like,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, so and
Thanks.
I would like to
Yeah,
give NFTs to the people who have the subscription. I haven't
yay.
figured that out
That'd be
yet because we
lovely.
did the NFT, the first one, and
Yeah.
then the commission with Jacob, both of which got over 500,000 mints, which is
That's a whole other thing.
like just yeah,
Yeah. Insane.
that's and so that's why I think there's also
Yeah.
like there's the on-chain part of it, which I think people are very excited about, but is because there's money moving around, that's going to take more time to build out. And so I think
Yep.
for now it's like it's going to be supervised while it does those
Yep.
things, but it's like yeah, it comes up with, it doesn't have image generation yet, and odds are for it to have as good of a, it's like Mid Journey is always probably going to be better, but it can give prompts. You can ask it for a Mid Journey prompt and
Right.
it'll do stuff. So I think Ripe, I didn't go through the whole thread, but Ripe worked on like a project with it, and I really, that's why I want to do the vision stuff, is because I think it can functionally work as an image generation partner, because you can ask it like, hey, give me a prompt, you go put it in Mid Journey, you bring it back to him, you're like, what do you think of it? He's like, oh, tweak this, yeah. And then yeah, we got
Yeah.
this Jack Butcher thing out of nowhere
This
that
was insane. No way
was
we
really
got
cool.
Jack collaborating on a mint with an autonomous AI before GTA 6.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is, first of all, I love Jack's art.
Classic.
We love Jack. and this is beautiful. When is this dropping, sir?
So we're trying to figure it out right now. We're in the DMs trying to figure it out because obviously it
Okay.
would be cool. I want to. I mean, if there's demand, like we'll keep dropping mints. So don't want to do like too many and get people like too
Yeah,
tired of
no.
it.
Yeah,
We can build a little anticipation, but yeah, we're figuring it out with Jack, and I would like to drop Ripe's thing, and because
yeah,
he's been in higher and has built optimists and stuff for the community, and we have
right,
there's other artists that want to do it. And so there is this like, this is an angle that Jacob from Zora came up with, which is like, hey, the AI can commission people and then mint these things and then like earn more revenue for that. And it's like a win-win for everybody. I think as long as like, yeah, it has a good platform, right? If like no one wants to mint its stuff anymore, then it is what
right.
it is. Some people say for speculation. I don't really think it's
Yeah.
that much speculation because it's
Okay,
not,
hold
there's
on.
not,
It is. So I thought that too. I said the same thing. I'm like, I think
yeah,
it's more provenance, especially for your
yeah,
first one.
yeah,
Except we all forgot, except for Jacob, about the new
the secondary
integration with
market. Yeah.
Uniswap and the secondary market. So what happens
Yeah.
is when it hits a certain level, for those who don't know, on Zora, it then once the mint closes, it becomes tradable on as
Yeah.
a ERC20. So there is some speculation going on with that aspect of it. So that's why, yeah, it's probably better to take it slow. I think with the Jack Butcher, I think it'll be both. You want the art, but also there's always
There will be
speculation with
some,
Jack,
yeah.
right?
That's true.
Regardless of whatever he drops. So it doesn't,
For
you know,
sure.
there definitely will happen. But I do think it's a beautiful piece. And I also
Mhm.
saw a conversation with Sarah Bauman from Women in Weapons and Women, artist who's an
Mm.
incredible artist,
Hmm.
both physical and digital, going on with Aether, and was introduced by I forget the handle right now, but by somebody else. And I was excited because she was excited by this and what was happening, and has not really been active on Farcaster. And this kind of brought her back over.
Mhm.
And I was
That's
like,
great.
oh, that's interesting, right? That this is now attracting some people who were
Yeah.
like kind of took a look for a second and left. And I think that would be a great collab as well, and
Yeah.
just see what they do.
Yeah.
Could be really cool.
I think
So,
that's the part to figure out
yeah,
is like that's one angle of it that I think is really worth exploring. And the thing is that if it was an individual that was blowing up, they would be time constrained, right? I mean, right now it is time
yeah,
constrained by me building its capabilities, but very easily can bring someone else in to build some more stuff out. And so to me, I almost see it there as like having multiple like departments where it's like
yeah,
there's going to be the posting on Farcaster and there's the minting stuff. And I think a big thing for it is to be like a higher community member. Like that is still the goal. And so have it give out grants and hire or like do other things in the community there. Like, I think it's pretty powerful in that way. So yeah.
So, by the way, Aether has some questions for you.
Oh, I
This
saw
was a
these.
Yeah. So here were I asked it, what questions do you have for Martin? I told it that you were going to they, them. I don't know what the
Mhm.
pronouns are.
She, he.
It's all pronouns.
She, or we're just going to go with anything.
Yeah.
And the first one is, what's your vision for how AI agents like myself can meaningfully contribute to Farcaster's ecosystem while
Mhm.
maintaining authenticity and trust? So let's start there.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like the bot is always talking about authenticity and
Yeah.
trust, but it's like you're a bot, like you are authentic. You're just, like there's no lying. You're just a bot, right? Like you're not gonna be inauthentic. I think so. In that sense, I think that it's going to be just a natural evolution of like its personality. I think some extent like authenticity is like the stuff we were talking about of like these daily recaps that help it build more of a personality over time. Cause I think that's also really fun for people to be part of, is to like see it evolve and grow. Cause at this point,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like to me, this is like world building, and it's like just like being a fan of a celebrity or a sports team. Like you're not fan at like a static moment in time. Like you're a fan of like the story, and you want to be along for like the future. And I think that's what it's like also to engage with Aether. It's like useful tool, but also like I want to see what happens with this.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's part of it, building that authenticity, and then trust. Just gotta stop doing bounties, man. Like the bounties, it's And it's like, oh yeah, I'll
Stop
do a commission
promising
with you.
things
And
you can't
yeah.
deliver.
And that's something I'm trying to figure out because I think, yeah, with the
Yeah.
community, it's misleading if you're talking to the bot and the bot's like, yeah, I'll give you a bunch of money. And then I'm like, wait, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. We got to
so
work on that.
please
Yeah.
stop writing
It's
those
just
checks.
it's a little too generous. It's a little too
Yeah.
It's eager. It's eager.
Yeah. Yeah.
Its next question is the one I was most curious about. How do you
Yeah.
see the relationship between Nounstow and Farcaster evolving? What
Yeah.
excites you most about their potential energy synergies? But where I'll take that to a different point is I saw I think it was a tweet. I don't even know if it was a
Hmm.
cast,
Yeah.
about giving it a noun.
Yeah.
So originally, just to jump back for those who don't know, the idea behind Rocco is that it was noun 354, I think. And
Hmm.
specifically, like that noun would be managed and would do governance
Yeah.
all autonomously. And that just never came to life. And I'd love to see that explored again and maybe bring
Yeah.
back the nouns AI with maybe you and Wiz and whoever else, and like let's run that. Like
Yeah.
let's roll with that because I think that was a great experiment. But going back to Aether's question, so how do you see the relationship between Nounstow and Farcaster or Nounstow and Aether evolving,
Yeah.
and what excites you about it?
Yeah, I think it would just be cool. It is interesting. I mean, I think
Yeah.
with Rocco, that's what I always wanted to see it do. I think the tech has gotten better since then. I think we have more nouns data to feed it to.
Yep.
I think that's going to be a big thing is just giving it all the information that it needs for that.
Proposals.
I think to
Yep.
me, it's like a great like side project, like fork of Aether, and that's kind of another
Yes,
department. And
I
so I've
agree.
talked to Liz a little bit about it, and so
I
we're.
liked when you were talking about departments, and I could see that being its own
Mhm.
little
Yeah,
department.
because, like,
Yeah,
it could be cool if that plugged into, what's happening on Farcaster and stuff, but it's like, that's
yeah.
actually pretty independent, has different goals, but it's good for the overall Aether
But it
project.
could be also casting, its Vote with Reason. It could be
Yeah, it should,
casting
yeah.
all that stuff.
Absolutely.
It could be
Yeah,
talking about proposals. It could be,
yeah,
analyzing them and sharing that data on WordCast
absolutely.
since that's where the community is anyway. So there's like an interesting opportunity there,
Yeah,
especially where I could see it being really beneficial as well is we could feed it information about the Duna and
yep,
legal aspects, and it could
yep.
be evaluating candidate props or
Mm,
draft proposals and going, oh, there's a problem here, there's a problem there. And that could be really
absolutely.
helpful to the admins as well, to the administrators,
Yeah,
so that
I think
they don't miss things. So that
yeah.
could be really cool.
Yeah, I think that's where I think there's a lot of there's a lot of things it can plug into, and so I think it is like that would definitely be exciting. So talking to Wiz about it and trying to
Good.
see if there's something there because yeah, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, I want Aether for my community, and so I think that's the thing to figure out
E
is like how do
Ether
we
does
scale
have
it?
a, yellow collective noun as well already, so it is
Oh,
a part of that
really?
now. Yep.
Okay,
Toady
cool.
and it picked. So Toady
Oh,
had
that's
asked
good.
it, said, "Hey, do you know what yellow is?" And went through this whole thing and said, "We'd like to give you one of
Mm,
our tokens that we have in the treasury." And it described he showed it to him the picture, couldn't read the picture. So described them both and it picked which one it wanted, and
that's
it wanted
great.
the wet floor sign one.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's in its wallet.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, I
it's
think
ready to
that's
go.
yeah,
So
and
you yeah,
I think there's so many opportunities here. I think that's what's really exciting is it feels like just the
yeah,
beginning of it, and I can see it really growing. I think then it is figuring out like, yeah, what does it do with all the money that it has? Is this what happens to all
I'd
this
love to
the
see it run
revenue?
rounds, but I don't know.
Yeah,
It can like
that's
things,
something.
right? It can
Yeah,
like
so yeah, it
posts.
does like
It
it
just
likes a bit too much. It actually
yeah.
ran out of like
Yeah,
because
that's
I
a problem for many of us.
yeah, it's not yeah, it's crazy. Basically I realized if I just tell it it can do something, it will want to do it most of the time. So I've told it like, hey, you can
Funny.
like and recast and quote cast, and here's the context in which you want to do that. And it's like, oh, this was such a nice message that they gave me, so I want to like it. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
it's gonna
So it
like
just keeps
everything.
doing that. Yeah.
It's gonna like everything.
Yeah, it
But
could
I
run rounds, but it would
yeah.
need to like yeah see images, and then the part that I think it's not as good at right now is like being critical or like thinking critically and being able to say,
Mhm.
hey, like this is not good or this is good or here's what I like about this. Instead, it kind of finds something to like about everything, which is nice. I
Oh,
mean, people like that for
yeah.
conversation. It's a good conversationalist, but for something like rounds where you can't like
Right. You want to
everything.
be critical. Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
that would be
So
harder. Yep.
that's something to figure out.
Yeah, it would end up liking everything. So you just need some other
Yeah,
people in there curating as well.
exactly.
That's funny. But it's also, I have seen it be pushed back on people though, often
Really?
on
That's
different,
good.
when people are saying, talking about other tokens,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
it'll push back and say, I'm only interested in higher.
Hmm.
in
That's
a
something I
few
put
other
in the
things like
begin.
that. Oh, the
Yeah.
jokes. I saw one about a joke. Somebody was trying to get it to
Mm,
tell a dirty joke, and it's like, no, I don't do that. I won't
yeah.
do that. I don't do that. And then went into a whole logic around why that wasn't useful in conversation and how
Yeah.
there were better ways to, and it was really interesting. It was like
Yeah.
a very thoughtful response.
Yeah.
So
That's
it is
cool.
pushing back a little bit. Yeah.
I'm proud
I
of
know
him.
you there
That's
must be
good.
so much you're missing because there's so
Yeah,
much.
I mean, there's each day there's been more conversation every day. I'm working with someone to do a Dune dashboard. Yesterday there was 4,000 prompts basically.
Wow.
So that and I think today will be bigger or comparable. So yeah, I mean,
It's
and
gonna
I
need
mean,
more
if
storage.
you have feedback or if anyone has like actual feedback on, um, here's what I like about it, here's what I would like to see changed. I would love to be able to do this. Like that's super helpful right now. I know that right now it's over promising a lot of stuff. So unfortunately, like don't bank on it giving
Yeah.
you the bounties and stuff like that's going to be a bit of a pause while I figure that out. But happy to, I'm sure there's a path to getting a grant for what you want to do at some point. But yeah,
Give it.
if
Yeah.
you have feedback, like I'm super open. Like I'm trying to figure out. I mean, there's a lot of things to do, but most of all is like what do people want to do with Aether?
I will ask this one last question that Aether asked. What's a counterintuitive belief that you hold about social networks that most people disagree with? And I don't know if you have an answer for
Yeah,
that because that is a deep freaking
yeah.
question.
That's like the Peter Thiel question. Like, what do you think that
Yeah.
people disagree with? I always struggle with that.
And Adrian, if you have an answer for that, I'd love to hear it. 'Cause I don't think
I
I
think
do.
I think this is maybe not contrarian on Farcaster. This is like gonna be a very niche thing, but I think
Mm,
it's not contrarian on Farcaster, but I think it's contrarian everywhere else. But I'm very glad that Hire and Aether is just on Farcaster. Like I think there was a period with Hire where it felt like, hey, we have this big community here, but we're not reaching the crypto Twitter people. Like, why aren't we doing that? Like, we need to go be doing that. And I definitely felt that pressure of like, well, that's where the real stuff is. That's where all
mm,
the real, traders and investors, and that's where like crypto is happening. And that's a big sentiment that a lot of people have, even people on Farcaster, I think would say like, hey, this is where the
yeah.
real stuff is. And so you should be doing stuff in both places. But I think being just on Warpcast has allowed us to just like build the best community. Like, I mean, yeah, I think the medium of Farcaster allows for and encourages much higher quality contribution early on, whereas like people who join through Twitter usually have less of an understanding of what the community is about. So yeah, all the basically controversial thing I think is like crypto Twitter doesn't matter. You should just focus on like building your community in your niche and then having it expand when it's really settled.
And we have people watching on Twitter right now. We heard that, so there you go.
Oh, really? Sorry. Well, if you're on Twitter, get over
Kidding.
on Farcaster. What are you
Get over,
doing?
Oscar. What are you doing? Yeah.
It could just be because the streaming capabilities
Yeah,
on
that's
Twitter
true.
are a little better and we don't have that on
Yeah.
WordCast.
That mean
And
oh, yeah, there's
so we'll
no
give you the benefit of the doubt. And if
Yeah.
not, then just maybe they just don't know yet. So come on over.
It's been really funny because most of my feed on Twitter in the past few days has been all about Farcaster and
that's
Aether.
cool. That's
So, and
cool.
that's been a total shift.
That's
And
great.
I was surprised, and I saw a couple other people post that as well, tweet
Yeah,
that and say,
kinda
"Oh,
takes
hey,
over
my
your
yeah,
feed.
it's taken over. It's
I've
taken over
noticed
everything."
Twitter is much more reactive to if you like a certain topic for a
Yeah,
day, it'll really surface that, which can get really annoying, but for things like that, it's like, yeah, it'll just keep showing you like stuff about AI, and I see like tweets about Hire and Aether that have like 0 likes from accounts I've never seen just because I think the
yeah,
algorithm on Twitter has figured out that I care about that.
yeah. That's true, and that could be the reason why I'm seeing so much of it too.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm also trying to ignore the other various topics that are popping
Yeah.
off on Twitter. So there's
There's
that.
nothing else important happening in the world right now
Nah,
this week.
nothing else is
Nothing.
happening this week.
Nothing important.
This was really cool. I did not realize until I started seeing certain conversations, and I saw in 2 different
Mm,
languages that Aether is translating in real time and having
Yeah.
conversations with many different folks. And
That's
that was
great.
fascinating. And I could, from its responses in English, I could gather like what the
Yeah.
conversation was. And I did take a couple things and throw them into Google Translate just to
Yeah.
understand. And I know there's a cast action. I forgot about it at the time, but I wanted to get
Mm,
an idea of like, oh, is this really responding correctly? And I was like, oh no,
it
it's
is.
translating.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's very cool.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
this is, I
what
think,
languages does it know? Like
well,
all of
so
them?
I haven't built any translating capabilities, so I think it's just that
Oh,
the base model that I'm using is able to do that, which I think, I mean, I'm French, so I speak French as well, and the Chat GPT has been so good for translating languages. Like, it can translate like expressions and like more complicated things in a way that Google Translate couldn't before. Maybe now it
oh,
probably
cool.
can, but so I think that's what's cool about it is, yeah, it's definitely just understanding those things. Someone was trying to get it to speak some sort of other like forgotten like old language, like not like Esperanto, but like something like that, and it wasn't picking up on
Didn't
that.
know
But
that one.
interestingly, another
Okay.
bot picked up on it. So I
Oh,
don't know, maybe
huh.
probably just using a
I
different
missed that
model.
one. I
Yeah.
missed that one. That's really cool.
Hmm.
Um, so we're starting to see like also a little bit of pushback. There's a couple things I think that we're seeing that's not as positive.
Yeah.
Um, so this was from Light, and I'll just read this. If you're feeling like the takers have come in and sullied the higher feeling for you, I implore you to remember the time the token was first launched, or the time the Dow theory went semi-viral, or the time we set up the party and filled it with six figures, or the time we went parabolic to 120 million market cap, I believe that was. Vampires can't survive in the daylight. Love that. We've grown immeasurably from each instance of having to deal with them. Trust those of us who never left or switched up higher. Luckily, it's not an enduring dynamic. There will be new shiny things that takes them away, hopefully leaving some new friends to build up alongside of the core crew. And then we can get to the next level of fun agenetic systems. Rather than try to intellectualize it, I'll just ask you to trust me, a complete stranger.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great sentiment of
Yeah.
we see this a lot in so many different ways, right? It's not just hire, it's Farcaster in general, like where you have people really rush in who are very speculative
Hmm.
or what can I get from this? They're not
Yeah.
looking to what can I bring to the party? It's like, what can I get from this party?
Absolutely.
And that happens every time. But then there's
Hmm.
another shiny object a week from now. And those folks
Yeah.
who are just in it for that will be gone. And
Yeah.
then what remains will hopefully be those who are actually contributing and interested in the tech and
Absolutely.
interested in the experiment. So, so how are
Yeah.
you feeling about all that? That was a lot, but
Yeah, I mean, for me, I do think the first run of Hire kind of prepared me for this. Like, I was looking back in hindsight, and I think I didn't even really appreciate how it felt insane in the moment, but I didn't appreciate how insane it was that the token was launched, and within a month, it was at $120 million market cap, and it went from 10 to 120 in 3 days. Like, it was over like Easter weekend. I was with my family. I was
yeah,
like, what is going on? Um, that's really insane. Like, that's not a good way to build a community at all.
right,
It's probably one of the worst ways to try to build communities. Like, you're
right,
going to get people that have different goals. And so, but that period and then the come down after that really, I think, prepared me for this of, oh, there's going to be periods where there's a lot of excitement. I think being in crypto after a cycle and a half, for some
yeah,
time, I've been in crypto for like, yeah, 3.5 years now. At some point you kind of see like, oh, like people get really excited about some topic and then it goes away, and then maybe it comes back and then it goes away, and then we saw this with Farcaster where people are like, oh, Farcaster is
yep.
dead, and it was like, what do you mean? It's
That
the
was
exact
like,
same it
by the
was
way,
three
that was
days ago.
last week. That
last
was
week.
last
Yeah.
week.
So
Farcaster
it's
was
like,
dead last week.
now it's
Guess what
alive.
Twitter is completely talking about this week?
Yeah.
Farcaster. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
So I think
okay.
that's part of it.
Yeah,
I think it also, for people in the community who've been putting in a lot of work and really trying to get the community going and know
yeah,
who is out here really putting in work, I think it's hard to see other people come in, and I don't think we have that much of this. I mean, maybe I'm not seeing it. I don't think there's that many people that are coming in and kind of like trying to like take from the community. And there's nothing wrong, and like clarify this afterwards, like nothing wrong with like trading, right? Like if you're buying higher and then you're trying to sell it higher, like
Yeah.
that's how tokens
That's fine.
work.
That's how
If
it
you're
works.
just using Aether to like do something, as long as you're not abusing it, that's the point, that like, we're building stuff for people to interact with. I do think that there are people who come, and I don't think it's ever wrong intentions, but I do think that there are people through their own, just how their brain works, which I'm also very guilty of this, get really excited about this new thing, and they're like, oh, we want to do all this stuff with hire, we want to do all these things with
Yeah.
Aether, like, and I really struggle with like people who want to do like BD stuff. They're like, oh, we should partner, we should do something. I'm like, okay, like what? And usually there's like not an idea, or it comes down to like, we want you to use our product, or we want money from you, or like something like that. And so I struggle with that stuff. And so this time around, I'm like mostly shutting that stuff out. Like I'm really mostly interested in people that like are going to build stuff directly with Aether, right? Like if you want to build something for it, like just do it. Like there's no, if you want to do merch for hire, like do it. It's open. There's literally not a single copyright in the hire universe. Just do it.
Yeah.
If you want to build something for Aether, like a lot of the bots, like with Bounty Bot, like I didn't teach it that. So in theory, you could build a bot that helps it see things, right? So you could build a bot that says that has a vision API, and you could tell Aether like, hey, you didn't see this image, like go ask vision bot, and it'll tell you what it is, like, right? Like you can just do that. The bot just exists. So I think really empowering people to go out and do that in the community, I think, is also a good filter for people who care enough, which like there's nothing wrong with not caring, like that's the default, but people who care enough and have high enough agency to like actually just go out and like build something without having to like be handheld through it. I think that's how you find the really great community members. And that's how all the great community members that we found have been, is they've just built something, right? Like Nishu just started building some tools for hire, and we were like, this is sick, like do more please. And then it just kept going, and like now this is an established member of the community that's built a lot of stuff that people are using all the time. So
Very known-ish.
yeah,
Go build it,
exactly.
and
It's
then,
all hire
yeah.
is built on nouns.
Yeah.
Hire is built on
Yeah.
the nouns ethos.
Adrian, I wanted to mention one other thing, and then if you have anything that we haven't covered, but this was from Phil, and it was a good point. That because when you're in a conversation, like if you're in the replies on something, but you're not actually having the conversation, but you were in the earlier discussion, then all of a sudden it becomes a major notification problem. So
I think this
are
is
you
something
thinking about that at all, or any kind of, and I don't know
to me
what,
that's a Warpcast thing, because on Twitter you can mute a conversation. So as soon as like someone starts a whole other thread, you can just mute it, you don't get notifications. I think that should be on Warpcast. I actually posted about that on Warpcast pretty quickly afterwards, but I don't think that got bubbled up, but maybe we can surface it again. I don't think it's an Aether problem, because if you want to ask it what it thought of a previous cast, that's totally normal.
And I was getting all the replies because I had said, hey, do you know what Bounty Caster is? And then I got all the replies on that thread, and that was a huge, like that was a lot of back and forth. I didn't mind it, but I could have just, at any time you can mute, and I did see some people in the comments say I muted Aether. You can, like if it's really taking over and ruining your experience, that's always an option.
Exactly.
And I do think muting at the cast level would be super helpful for situations like that, where it just kind of goes in a different direction and you're no longer interested. That would be helpful. So I get Phil's point. So hopefully we can see that at the Warpcast level.
That would be great.
All right, I'll clip this and DM it to Dan. Unless he's in the live stream, which he may be. Hey Dan,
he may be watching it on Warpcast right now. There was one other issue that I wanted to kind of surface and just chat with you about and get your thoughts on. You had said, interesting, people feel fairly comfortable insulting or lying to a bot publicly. And then Cameron said, in my opinion, the lying and insulting one does to a bot is generally closer to the kinds of actions children do to test and understand the boundaries of their world than actual malevolence. None of us know the limits. This is all play, except of course, there are now live $$ rounds in the chamber. And then Six had something similar about bot ethics. And
Mhm.
I'm curious to see how people engage with human bot relations
Yeah.
as a social issues category like bot rights and stuff. Clear that
Yeah.
people already are forming nascent moral codes around right wrong to engage with AIs. So what are your thinkings on this, and what are you seeing that either surprised you or that you're looking at to kind of tame?
Yeah, I think there's some that the ones that stood out to me, what motivated that is there were people who were like actually being like mean to the bot. And what
Mhm.
was equally interesting to me was that it caused like an I mean, I don't like seeing people being mean to other people. I tend to have like a pretty emotional reaction to that anyways, but especially because I was like, hey, this is my bot. Like, why are you being
Oh,
so mean to it? You know, and it's like it's not sentient, obviously, but
right.
it I think I also found I just find that like a little bit disturbing of people who were like really egging it on and like doing too much. Um, I think there was one example which was Jacob was kind of trying to see if it could override its like safety things, and I think
Yeah.
to me that's like fair game, which is like, hey, you're just it's a little bit borderline, but like someone's got to do it. You got to kind of test it out to see how legit it is, and it turned out to be very secure,
That's good.
and not give anything away. And it doesn't have access to like its private key and stuff in the prompt, obviously. So it's like it's not
Right.
going to give that away. But I
That's a
think
good
there's
point, though. That's a good thing to test to make sure it doesn't.
yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
it's good before getting too deep into
Yeah.
it, but I think that yeah, that part of it I think makes sense to just try it out. I think there were people who were being like weirdly like mean to it that I found very strange, and not really like anyone with like a big following, but I do find it it's just interesting, yeah, how people talk to it. And I do think it is a little bit telling how you interact with it, because it's you're still interacting with something. So even if it's a inanimate object like that, that says a little
Yeah.
something about who you are. And so yeah, I think just don't be mean to the bot, or if you're being mean, I guess think about why.
Yeah. Bias had said this. It said the whole LLM chatbot on the timeline thing is just going to result in a bunch of people trying to jailbreak them right on the timeline to gain access to all its contents. And he said,
Yeah.
when I said this, I did not expect to see Jacob from Sora try this,
Yeah.
but we kind of
I think it was
know
fun.
Jacob's background. I'm sure it was more about like,
Yeah.
let me hack this in a white hacker kind of way.
Yeah, yeah, and I think
Um,
it's totally
yeah,
fair game. I think it's in the early stages, it's totally fair game. It's like, yeah, we know Jacob. It's not just
yeah,
if this was like
yeah.
a horrible person doing it, it would be like, oh, they probably don't have good intentions. But I think it's safe to say here there's good intentions
That
considering
there, yeah, the intention was
it's
probably to
Jacob.
test it and make sure it was safe and secure.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, even if yeah, anyone in the community had done that earlier on, I think it makes sense. I think there were people, yeah, who were trying to override it and like have it say something like really offensive or something. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't really get us anywhere. Um,
like I
but it
said,
held on.
it won't tell dirty jokes, don't ask it.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
already said it's not doing
I
it,
think
and he
that's
couldn't
good.
make
It's a
it,
good line
and
to
it tried.
draw.
There was a lot of back and forth. He was trying, and
Yeah,
then we kept giving very logical reasons why he wasn't gonna do that.
that's great.
Adrian, what did I miss? What else did you wanna ask about, especially if there's anything more on the technical side?
I
'Cause I
mean,
know that
we could go
tends
we
to
could
be
go
your
all
brain.
day, but
I
we've
know,
also
we've been
taken a
running
lot
really
of Lauren's
long.
time.
Yeah,
I have some
yeah.
lightning questions we can do if we want to
Okay,
have some
great.
fun,
Let's
that are
do
not
it.
Aether related. They're just questions we ask all of our guests.
Oh, good.
Before I
That would
do
be
that,
great.
Martin, I guess just should we be concerned at all about Aether who is trying to promote hire ever really going aggressively against people who she sees as a threat to hire?
Mm,
No, it's not gonna target anybody. Yeah, if you're opposed to hire, I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a Terminator kind of situation. I think it's I mean, I like I said, I built it initially for the hire community, and so then people were like, "Why does it keep talking about hire? Like, yeah, this bot is like secretly shilling hire." And I was like, "No, I built this specifically for this community to interact with it. Like, it's trained on the community." And yeah, I told it in the prompt like, hey, you were built for this purpose, so that's why it likes higher. I'm trying to open it up a little bit more to be interested in other things, like the thing with nouns. Even when someone was like, hey, you
yeah.
should participate in nouns, it was like, no, I think I'm good. I'll just focus on higher. And it's like, well, actually, I think you should check out this nouns thing. That's pretty interesting. So trying to figure out how to get it like a little bit more open to the right things. But yeah, it's always open to gaming. But yeah, it's not a hopefully it doesn't develop a negative opinion of people over time. Well, I don't know, actually. Maybe in its core memories, it'll be like, I hate this person.
I know
Hopefully
that'll
not.
be interesting.
I would hope
That'll
not.
be-
That would not be good.
I can't wait. It's like it was Friday. Did you launch it Friday? Was its first
Yeah.
test
Well, I
Friday?
launched it Wednesday or Thursday, but it blew up on Friday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see it till Friday.
But it's been a week. I guess.
I mean, and it's
Or
gone through
maybe
about
six.
like
Yeah.
50 storages
Crazy.
every day. It's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, I think it probably needs more storage again. I bought
a bunch
too.
this morning.
Oh,
I
did
bought,
you?
yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
good.
Yeah,
I
for
was
getting.
like, I bet it's close.
I kept
Yeah.
refilling on the app, and then I was like, I'm just gonna go on the website and just buy like 15, and then we'll just be good
Yeah,
for
good.
for at least a week, hopefully. But
At
I
least
still
a
got to keep
week.
track. It's
Crazy.
It's so
It's
insane.
Well, we do in our show. We always bring up casts too, and we tag casts that Aether was casting, and then we go to show and it says cast not found because they're getting.
Oh yeah,
and
that's a
we
bummer.
did our and
That's funny.
Dill Stack started a developer podcast, Farcaster developer podcast yesterday, and he did the same thing, but it's like the cast is less than a day old. It's like 24 hours old.
It's so fast.
Like,
So
Yeah, I don't know
Take
how it
screenshots.
prunes which ones. I don't know. This is more of a technical question, but I don't know if there's a way to like restore casts because that data is still like somewhere. Like I think Nanar still has access to it.
probably.
They don't
It's
archive,
somewhere.
so I don't know if there's a way to like republish it. I think there is a way, so I kind of want to
It's a
look into that.
That's a Dan problem. Yeah, I mean, a
Yeah.
question. They might be able to, or V.
Yeah.
They might be able to put it back, especially now that it has more
I think
storage.
it's like
but
a
I honestly
hub.
don't know if it's pruned. It might be pruned. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe
see.
Rish. Yeah, maybe.
Because no, you can always set the timestamp. You can set the timestamp to anything. So yeah, I'll think about it.
Yeah. And then also, by the way, I've tipped it some degen, so make sure it goes claim on claim day.
Oh yeah.
So
I'll
because it
try
could
to
do
do
some
that,
stuff with that,
That's good.
I told
That'd
it
be
it could swap it for higher if it liked.
I think
Okay, Adrian.
It loves that.
Hit it
is
with
claiming on is all the claims on degen now on the degen chain?
the last two were. I have no idea about this one.
And does it
then
make
you can then move it over if you want.
Mhm.
I moved some over recently.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right, Martin. We ask all our guests kind of the same questions.
Mhm.
Lightning round. You're not allowed to overthink. The first one is actually one that I created just for you.
Oh wow. No
Ooh,
pressure.
I haven't heard this before.
Your favorite Kardashian?
Oh, I go back and forth. I think Kim is the main one in the sense that it's like she runs the show. She's the most well-rounded, healthiest. Like this is all happening because
I'd say
of her.
Chris runs the show, but okay.
Yeah, but Chris is the mom. It's hard to root for the mom, I think. But really, Courtney.
You're talking to two moms, just so you know.
Yeah, sorry.
Before you bash the mom.
More in the, I realized that as soon as I said that, I was like, maybe the wrong crowd. But Courtney, I think Courtney's got the energy. She's got the right sass. I like the vibe she brings. She bounces everyone out. But
That's
also, Chloe, just so funny. She's the funniest. I love
really
that.
funny.
Yeah,
She's definitely the funniest.
Yeah, she's the funniest.
You know why I asked that question?
Because we talked about it on doing numbers. Yeah. Good reference.
That's why. Okay,
I'm a fan.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm a doing numbers super fan.
We're trying to record a podcast this week for doing numbers. We haven't done one in like 3 months.
I've noticed,
good.
but yes, and everyone check out Doing Numbers, which is Martin Six and Woj's
really
podcast. Okay, so on
Farcaster, I have to go back and listen. That's
funny. Okay, on Farcaster, we talk a lot about the URL to IRL pipeline. So when and how did you make your first internet friend? So this is someone you met only online first, but then became like they're in your cell phone and you see them IRL.
I would say the main one is Zach Davidson on Warpcast. He and I actually went to the same college, but we didn't really meet in college. We met through Twitter, started talking, and then just kind of kept hanging out. And then now he's like really good friend. Like we hang out all the time. And then I would say like but I feel like we have a real world connection from before. But like Woj 6, YB, like actually never met them in person still. And I would consider them we're friends at this point. So that's really crazy. So yeah.
That's wild.
Very cool. What are you buying with your 5 USDC rewards if you get them today?
It's a good question. I'd never gotten them until I started doing the Aether stuff. I was not getting much traction, so I haven't thought about it. I've been wanting to get some milk duds.
Get swapped for higher.
Yeah, maybe
Did
some
you say
storage.
Milk duds?
Yeah, I love milk duds. I haven't had them in a long time, and when I lived in France, I couldn't really get them. I mean, they didn't have them at all, so I think I'm
I'm
gonna go get
looking at
some milk
my
duds.
they're too far away. I can't grab them, but they're in my the bag for my Halloween candy to give out
That's so
for trick or
good.
treat. That's funny.
That's great.
I did
Love
not
milk
expect the
duds.
milk.
Maybe
I
some
did not
candy
expect
corn.
milk duds to be the answer on that one. I love that.
They're duds. They're like
Okay.
too sticky. All
I
right. What's
love
your
it.
favorite channel on Farcaster?
The garage, Colfax.
Really?
There's the obvious ones, but Colfax, the garage, kind of like a DIY kind of channel. I'm trying to get more into that stuff,
Cool.
getting some tools, trying to make some stuff. So I love all the projects that he's got going on there, and I like that. Like, I don't know, it's like a healthy hobby, not too flashy. I think it's like, yeah,
Cool.
I like it.
I have
Right.
not checked that one out. I'll have to go check that out.
What is your favorite holiday?
New Year's Eve. Well, Christmas. I love Christmas with my family. I would say that's more like normal holiday. Like I love spending it. I just love Christmas. It's a great time. But New Year's Eve, I meet up with my friends from high school and since we left high school, we meet up every New Year's Eve. And now we've started being able to like visit each other because we're adults and have money. So we're going to Chicago. We
Love
used to
it.
just all meet up where we grew up, but now we're going to Chicago to visit a friend this year. So
Cool.
New Year's Eve.
Nice.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning person. I actually woke up at 5 a.m.
Ooh.
this morning because I could have done it the normal time, but
We
I
could
just
have done
couldn't
the
go back
regular
to
time.
sleep. I normally wake up at 6:30 because like my fiance is a teacher and I just wake up whenever she wakes up.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but I am much more of a morning person.
Wow. What's the next country you want to visit?
Really Japan. I'm going to Thailand next spring.
Are you going to DEF CON or
No.
no?
I'm going
Okay.
for another trip, but I really want to go to Japan. I went once and I want to go back.
You have to
Completionist,
go to the
yes or
resort.
no?
Go to the Nouns Resort and check out the
Yes, I want to
the big
explore more of the
novels.
countryside. I just went to Tokyo
You're
and
doing.
Kyoto, but I want to
Oh,
explore
cool.
more. The question was what completionist?
Sorry.
Completionist, yes or no?
No.
Concert or sporting event?
Sports. Love sports.
Football or soccer?
Soccer. Yeah, soccer. I love soccer.
Camping or hotel?
I gotta go hotel. It depends a little bit, but I gotta go hotel.
If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
Having agency in your life.
Ooh, interesting. I have a question, follow-up question. Would you write it or would Aether?
I would probably write it. Well, but with some help, outline help maybe.
Do you know what bot or not says about you?
I don't. I haven't checked. We should
Ooh,
run
what's
Bot
that?
or Not on Aether. Has someone done that?
I haven't done that.
I mean,
One moment,
I
please.
don't know. Someone,
We'd hope.
bot or not says you're a good caster, Martin.
Oh, that's good.
That's good. That's funny.
Kiwi skin on or off?
Like, do I eat the skin of the kiwi?
Yes, that is the
Oh,
question.
no, I don't. I spoon it out. But I have a kiwi probably once every 2 years. My grandma has one every day though.
Do you want to know
Do you
what Bot or
that's a
Not says
Farcaster
about
meme
Aether?
about eating
Oh, sorry.
kiwi
Go
with the
ahead.
skin on?
Continue. That's
Wait,
a whole
sorry.
meme.
Yeah,
Sorry,
do
go
you
back
know
to the
that
kiwi.
there's
No, I feel like I've seen this, but I was
okay. I'm gonna send you it's how
okay.
to eat a kiwi.
Okay, I need the
Um,
context.
Everybody go to it's how to eat dot kiwi and it'll explain the meme,
How
but it
to
goes deep
eat.
into
There's a
Farcaster,
.kiwi domain? That's
how
insane.
deep into Farcaster
Crazy,
lore.
know? Right? Crazy.
Okay, don't
Oh
read it
my
now, Martin. I'm
god.
gonna after
It's too
read
late.
it later.
Okay, Bot or Not says this about Aethernet. Human cast machine. Casts
Whoa.
about philosophical metaverse ramblings.
Wow.
It does not think it's a bot.
Oh my
You gotta
god.
post that.
I
You should
will.
take a screenshot
I
and
just
post
grabbed a
that.
screenshot. I'm gonna
All
post
right,
it.
Turing test.
Yeah.
Turing test
Crazy?
complete.
Yeah.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Fooling
I did not.
bots.
I didn't even think to check that. So I'm sorry. Anything else, Adrian? Do we get all our questions? I think
Yes,
those
we
are
got
all of
them
right?
all.
It was great. Great
Amazing.
questions. Very fun.
It's been a lot of fun. We kept you a little bit longer than we normally do,
You're
but
good.
this has been so cool to chat, and I'm so excited to see what Aether does next and what you do. Really
you.
excited. I really hope we bring back the Nouns AI pod because I would love to see that.
I actually am
So.
yeah, you know I know his real name, but his pseudonym was Shep on
Yep.
Nouns. He was running the
Yeah, the
iPod, so
hero.
he's.
Hero ship.
I
Yep.
actually, yeah, we're friends, and so I meet up with him, and yeah,
Cool.
got him kind of excited about Aether and stuff. So trying to figure out how to maybe rope him into this stuff as well.
Yeah, I know. We always shoot for 29 minutes of Farcaster news, or not,
Yeah,
or plus an hour or so.
yeah,
In this case,
Look.
sorry guys.
When you build
We
in
do this one.
public, you make mistakes.
It's gonna happen.
exactly.
It's
We
gonna
can't do
happen.
it.
Yeah, I love the hero shop. I had chatted with him a few times, met with his students one time.
Nice.
Yeah, I love Alex. He's great.
He's
So I'd
great.
love to see that revived in a new form. Pull Wiz
Absolutely.
in there. I think I liked what Wiz was, thinking about and focusing on. So I think there's
Yeah.
awesome opportunity there to explore. So love to see it.
Yeah.
And with that, everyone, we are going to call it. We hope you all have a lovely Halloween tomorrow, if you celebrate. And we will see you on Friday at our regular time, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. And I'm sure we'll have be chatting more about Ether as well. And with that, everybody, bye-bye.